Hey guys, thanks for coming back and joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Glad to have you back. So, in today's episode, we're going to cover 9 phrases that you can use to have better outcomes when you have difficult conversations with people. So, by definition, difficult conversations are difficult. They can fill us with dread, they can make us avoid having these conversations. We have to deliver a message that we don't think the other party is going to receive well. And those things can make us uncomfortable. And sometimes they are uncomfortable, and that's a part of life, especially if you're in a leadership position. And I would argue that parenting is a leadership position. Being in a relationship requires some leadership from any party in a relationship, regardless of which party you are in a relationship. So there's lots of times where you have to take a leadership role in your life, whether it be personal or professional. And it's good to have these tools in your toolkit. So when you do have to have those conversations, you can have them in the most productive and constructive way. So the message is clearly important. And you don't want to lose the message. But how you deliver the message is at least as important, if not more important, than the message itself. Because if you go at someone hard and you put them on the defensive and you sabotage them or you sandbag them, it really creates a difficult environment for trust, for open communication, for open dialogue. And that's not where you want to be in any conversation, especially a difficult conversation. We want to treat people with empathy, not sympathy, empathy. And it's important to distinguish between those two. Empathy is putting yourself in their shoes and thinking about how they're going to receive this, what may be going on in their life that led to whatever the situation is that you're in. Sympathy is feeling sorry for people, and we don't want to feel sorry for people. There's nothing wrong with being empathetic. I think sympathy is not great in most instances. When you think about, handing out, you give someone on the street $1. You're doing that to make yourself feel better. You're really not helping that person. It may feel like you're helping that person, but you're really doing it because you feel sorry for them. And I don't see a lot of value in that. Helping people help themselves is a different situation. I was downtown Cleveland one time and it was early morning. I was out for a walk and there was a guy on the corner and he was clearly upset. And I stopped. I said, "Hey, are you all right?" He said, "Well, man, I just got released from jail and I have no money. I have no way to do anything. I'm trying to get back to Akron. And I can't even catch the bus to Akron. It's $9." And I said, "Listen, I don't have any money, but hang on a second. I'll be back." Because I actually lived downtown at the time. I went back to my apartment. I got $20. And I went back and just asked him. I said, "What are you doing in Akron?" And he explained that his family was down there. He was going to stay at his mom's house while he got back on his feet. He said, "I just, they let you out of prison with nothing. There's no money, there's no resources. They literally just drop you off. They drop me off on the corner like 4 blocks down, and I'm just walking around trying to figure out how to get back to Akron." In that instance, I didn't have a problem giving the guy. I gave him $20. I said, "Get yourself something to eat, get your bus ticket, get home to see your mom, and I wish you luck. I hope your life picks up. I hope things get better for you. Think about your decisions and do your best." So in that situation, I don't have any problem giving that guy $20 because he genuinely seemed like he needed $20, and I believed his story that he just got released from prison. So, but handing someone with a sign, no, I don't do that. In fact, I generally get in arguments with those people, especially when they're aggressive, because I don't want to be accosted when I go down the street. And your choices led you to where you were. If you're going to take responsibility for it, that's fine. A lot of times I'll offer them a job and say, "Hey, I got a job if you want one." I can't tell you how many times I've done that and have people say no. So if you don't want to help yourself, you're not getting anything from me. But empathy, definitely important. Empathy is definitely important. And you want to avoid using triggering or accusatory words. We're going to give you 9 things to use, 9 ways to approach that conversation. Then we got some bonus things at the end of the episode on things to avoid from making the conversation feel confrontational or making it go in a bad way, triggering words that can maybe set people off on the wrong path. So if we use these words and phrases, they're de-escalating words and phrases. They help kind of move the conversation along and get things out on the table without them feeling like you're confronting them or you're accusing them or you're judging them, because that's really what you want to avoid in difficult conversations. Everybody's got a lot of stuff going on in their life. It's not our place to judge people. It's not our place to tell people what to do, but we do have to tell them sometimes what they can't do, or what we're not going to tolerate anymore. And that those can be difficult conversations. So you can be a straight shooter and still treat people with dignity and respect. And that's the goal of sharing this information, is to give you tools so that you can treat people with dignity and respect, but still shoot them straight and tell them what's going on and what you need from them. So with that said, here's our 9 phrases and a little bit of examples of how we've used them in the past. So the first one is just tell them up front. Like, look, I'm going to say something or some things that you might not like to hear. And you can do that in an unemotional, direct, and straightforward way. You have kind of set the stage so that whatever comes out of your mouth next, they know it's not going to be real pleasant. So just confront it head on. Look, I got to talk to you about something that you're probably not going to like, but I need to get it out on the table. Like, that sets the stage so they know what's coming. They know that they have something to cover with you, and they probably aren't going to like to hear it initially, but at least they know what's coming. So that first one is one we use a lot. Look, we have to have a tough conversation. Let's go take a walk. Like that's generally how I do it. And that's very well received because people know that something's up and you got to talk to them about something. Number 2, have some concerns about. Then you go into whatever your concerns are. But that's a softer way of saying, hey, look, something's wrong. I think you have a part in what's wrong, and I need to talk to you about it. And but if you say I have some concerns about, that's a easier way to ease into the conversation and still have them engage and not feel attacked. So we've used that one ourselves. I've been thinking about, because that doesn't really label it as negative, and maybe it's not negative. Maybe it's just challenging. Maybe it's awkward. Maybe it's personal. Maybe it's could be somewhat embarrassing. I don't know what the situation is, but we all know when we're having a conversation that we think could go sideways or someone could take the wrong way. So if you phrase it as, look, I've been thinking about this, and then cover whatever you want to cover, that's a good lead in to a difficult conversation. Number 4, it sounds like you're feeling, or it seems like you're feeling. That's a good way to say, hey, I have observed X, Y, or Z, and I want to verify with you that my observations are correct. So it kind of puts the focus on them, and it makes them open up and feel, hey, this is a person that's trying to relate to me. This is a person that cares about what I have going on in my life. This is a person that cares about how I feel. And it's a good way to start off a difficult conversation, or in a difficult conversation when someone says something to you and you want to make sure that you heard them correctly so you can respond correctly. It sounds like, and then parrot the words back to mirror the words right back to them. Just say exactly what you heard them say. I want to make sure I got this right. It sounds like you're feeling. It sounds like you're saying. That's a good thing to use in the conversation. Similarly, I think what I heard you say, that's a good one to use as well. We do this a lot because you can interpret what people say incorrectly, or maybe they say words that mean one thing, but they actually mean another. I do this with my wife a lot because it's very interesting to me, the difference in the way our minds work. One's not better, one's not worse. They're just different. I'm very literal, very black and white, very straightforward. I always tell people, with me, you don't have to read between the lines, just read the lines. Like, there's nothing ulterior there. It took my wife a little bit to figure that out because she was always trying to say, okay, so what does he really mean when he says that? I mean, exactly what I just said. And with her, she's got a lot of stuff churning in her mind. Her mind is like a web browser with 4,000 tabs open all the time. It's crazy how much she processes information over and over again in her head. And so I will say that I think what I heard you say, or I think what you meant to say, I think what you're trying to convey is, that's a good way to get clarifying questions out there and make sure that you're really hearing and understanding what someone has to say to you. The other thing to do is ask a next one is ask a leading. Can you elaborate on? Can you talk more about? Can you say more about? Those are good phrases to get people engaged in the conversation. So let's say you introduce a difficult topic, whatever it is. Let's say it's about money. Let's say it's about sex. Let's say it's about family. Let's say it's about politics, whatever. Doesn't matter. Someone shares a thought, or you share a thought that you think might be difficult or hard for someone to receive, and they respond. Can you elaborate on that? Can you say more about topic X? Can you elaborate on topic Y? That's a good way to keep them engaged in the conversation. Let them know you're listening and let them know you care about their point of view. Okay, so sometimes things can be difficult or go off the rails in a difficult conversation is a better way to say it. And you can sense that it's going a bad direction. You want to refocus, reframe, and reset the conversation. A good phrase to use to do that is let's just take a minute and regroup. Let's just take a pause and revisit this in a bit. Let's both get our wits about us and have a productive conversation after we grab something to drink, after we take a walk, after we clear our heads, whatever the case may be. Let's just take a minute to regroup. That's a good way to reset that. We both want this to be productive. We both want this to be successful. Let's give ourselves the best chance of doing that. Let's just take a pause and we'll pick this up where we left it off and have a more productive conversation. So let's take a moment. It's a good way to go. Can we rephrase this to make sure we're on the same page? So if you, let's just say someone at work hasn't been doing their job and you confront them on that and they say, well, I've been doing my job. My work is excellent. So let's rephrase this so that we're both on the same page. And then you can maybe say, here is the outcome that we're looking for. It seems to me like the outcome that we're looking for is different than the outcome that we're getting. Notice I didn't say good. Notice I didn't say bad. I said different. So that's not an accusatory word. So that's a good way to use that phrase. Let's rephrase this. Let's reframe this. Let's think about this differently so we can both get on the same page. That's a good way to pivot that conversation in a more productive and useful way than making it accusatory or when you can feel someone getting defensive to kind of disarm them. And then the last one is let's focus on finding a solution together. So even though let's say you bring up something contentious that could cause differences between you and the person or people that you're talking to, let's focus on finding a solution together. Finish your statement with, I want to focus on finding a solution to the issue I just raised. Let's work on finding a solution together. That's a good way to go because then it's collaborative. Then it's not me attacking you. Then it's not me talking down to you. Then it's not me judging you. It's a collaborative conversation to deal with an issue that one of us, me, has just brought up. So those are 9 good phrases to use to manage those conversations, kind of keep them in an area where they're going to be productive, where you have a chance to be productive, be successful. And we say a lot, we want things to be constructive, not destructive. And sometimes when you have difficult conversations, they can head down a destructive path where it's going to be more difficult down the road. And that's what you're trying to avoid when you have these conversations. So now, with all of those things being good, let's talk about some things that you want to avoid in difficult conversations. Don't assume your viewpoint is obvious. Don't beat around the bush. Don't be passive aggressive. Come out and say what you have to say. Say it in an unemotional way. Say it without using triggering words like you always, you never. Avoid global statements. Avoid words that sound judgmental, good, bad, right, wrong. Try to avoid those words. There's ways to say those things. It's not a great look when we do X, right? That's a good way to say, hey, I think you're wrong in how you're approaching things. One thing I do in a negotiation is I rarely say no. When I say no, it's pretty final. Like if I say no, I'm not doing that, I'm not going to revisit that point. I'll say no a lot of different ways without saying no. Tell me how I'm supposed to do that. I don't think I get that sold. I don't think that's going to work for us. I think that's going to be really hard. Those are all ways to say no without saying the word no. So don't assume your viewpoint is obvious. Get it out there. Say it in a non-confrontational way, as non-confrontational as possible, and really work towards having a productive conversation. Number 2, don't exaggerate. Get to the point. If someone has been late 3 times for work and you have to talk to them about it, don't say you're late all the time. Don't exaggerate those things. Hey, in the last month, you've been late for work 3 times. It's becoming problematic. We have to have a conversation about it. So don't exaggerate whatever the issue is. Get to the point. Don't undersell it and don't oversell it. Be accurate with your statements. So exaggeration will make people defensive. It gives them arguments back at you. It does not lead to productive conversations. Don't tell others what they should do. You know what you should do? No, you don't. You don't know what they should do. Uh, what even if you're their boss, let's put this in a professional setting. You're their boss. You know what you should do. That's not the approach. Don't say that. What we need from you is, that's a different way to say, here's what I need you to do. Or you could say, here's what I need you to do. Not what you know what you should do. Don't tell them what they should do. Tell them what you need. Tell them what you're looking for, and let them connect those dots and deliver it in a way that is useful for them. Because at the end of the day, you want the result. You don't necessarily care about how they get the result. You want the result. So don't tell them what to do or what they should do. Don't blame other people for your feelings. Like, just because you have a feeling doesn't mean you're right. Just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right. Just because you're upset doesn't mean you're right to be upset. We can all get defensive. We can all get emotional. We can all take things the wrong way. I can tell you that one thing I've trained myself to do over the years is, when someone says something, and it can be taken two ways, and one of the ways is good and one of the ways is bad, I will assume that they mean it in the good way, and I will clarify that they mean it in the good way to make sure that that's exactly what they're trying to get at. So don't push your feelings and thoughts onto somebody else and make them responsible for you feeling better, for you feeling happy, for you feeling satisfied. That's on you. Now, like when you're in a relationship, it's important to tell your partner what's important to you so that they can work towards meeting those needs for you. But it's up to you to be happy. It's not up to someone else to provide your happiness. So don't put your feelings on other people. It's a bad way to go. And it's unfair to them because nobody can make you happy except for you. So don't do that in conversations either. Don't challenge someone's character integrity. Let's say for a second that you caught someone stealing at work, and you have to confront them. And this has happened to me many times. I can't tell you how many different people in my 30 plus year career in retail grocery we have caught stealing. It's dozens, if not over 100. And I've never said, well, you're a thief. You're a bad person for stealing. I actually had a guy that he was a meat cutter at a store, and one of our managers caught him stealing. And I was running the store at the time. I was the assistant manager, but the store manager was out for 3 months for surgery. So I was running the store. So we catch this guy stealing, and he wasn't stealing, bread and peanut butter for his family. He was stealing cigarettes and candy bars, and it doesn't matter what he was stealing. You can't steal. It's not right. It's just, you can't do it in a grocery store. You can't run the business that way. So when we caught people stealing, they were almost always terminated. Now, this was a big company, and I had to call. It was called labor relations, but it was HR and legal. And I had to call and walk him through the scenario and wait for the final approval. And he came in to talk to me and said, what do you think is going to happen? And I said, look, I've never been in one of these situations where it didn't wind up with the employee being terminated. So you should be prepared for that. I don't know that that's what's going to happen. I'm fairly certain that's what's going to happen. And I don't want you to be surprised if that's what comes back. But I've called it in. I'm waiting for the final approval and or direction. And as soon as I have that, I'll let you know. So he turned around. He walked out of my office. He stopped at the door. I don't know if he wanted to turn around and talk to me, if he wanted to turn around and do something bad to me. I don't know. He went home and killed himself. He turned out he had a pretty big gambling problem. He was concerned about losing his job, and he decided that was his best course of action. So it was tough. It was tough. The guy that caught him stealing was very upset. I felt terrible for the guy. I felt terrible for his family, but I didn't feel any personal responsibility for that. I was not the one that stole. I was not the one that put myself in that situation. He did all those things to himself. I was very empathetic to his situation, but I was not sympathetic to it at all. And it was a terrible thing, and I'm sorry that him and his family had to go through that, but that's just how it is. But I never once challenged his character or his integrity. I didn't call him a crook. I didn't call him a thief. I didn't say he was a bad person. And so I don't feel like I contributed in any way to anything that was going on in his head. But it's very important not to do those things. That's not up to you to make those judgments. It's not up to you to express those judgments. If you ever feel like you need to make those statements, ask yourself these 3 questions. James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, has these 3 questions in his newsletter, and I think it's brilliant. Does this need to be said? Before you talk, answer these 3 questions in your head. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? Does this need to be said by me right now? If the answer to all 3 of those is yes, go ahead and say what you need to say. Don't do it to make yourself feel better. Don't do it to clear your conscience. Don't do it to assuage your guilt. Uh, if you can answer no to any of those questions, you should not say it. It's really that simple. So don't challenge someone's integrity. Don't challenge someone's character. Think before you speak. Think about the words that you're using, because it's the difference between these conversations being productive and these conversations going off the rails and being destructive. And the last thing is, don't say it's not personal, because like everything's personal. Everything's pretty personal. It's affecting that person. It's personal to them. Don't say it's not personal, especially in a work setting, because it just makes people feel like they're not valued. It makes them feel like they don't matter. It makes them feel like they're not a part of the team. It's not personal. How many hours do we spend at work? Like, if you don't take that personal, you're probably not doing a very good job. And so most of us want to do a good job. Most of us take personal pride in what we do. Most of us do take those things personally. Don't diminish that with someone by saying, don't take this personal, because it's probably very personal to them. So, so that's our episode for today, guys. Got a list of things or statements, statements or phrases that are useful to have and use in difficult conversations. And we gave some bonus tips on what to avoid doing or saying in difficult conversations to make them go as well as they possibly can, knowing that they're a difficult conversation. They might not always go great. So keep that in mind as you're planning your next one. I hope this is useful, and I hope you're able to incorporate some of these things into your conversations and they go well for you when you have to have them. So don't forget, guys, James always puts it up right over here on the banner. So don't forget to go over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. We've got all of our podcast episodes on there. We've got a daily newsletter that we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to on our website. And then we've got links to all of our social media accounts on our website as well. And then don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. Really appreciate you coming back. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.